Hi, I'm Will Bruin, and I was just recognized as a Seattle Sounders legend. Now I get to do voice reads for the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners! The Sounders rule the region! Seattle Sounders is campeón! All creatures great and small.
Rothrock going to collect it. He does just about. Runs into the advertising awning. Low to our left. Ball goes in. Oh, what a cross! And what a goal!
Where's my copy?
I got a bunch of them in the car. I'll get you some.
You're handing them out for free already.
How many
cost on them?
$50.
I'll Venmo you.
This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes, part of the Sounder at Heart podcast network. Sponsored by Full Pull Wines and our subscribers. We're recording on Monday, February 23rd, 2026. I am your host, Jeremiah Shan. Today, I'm joined again by Aaron Campo and our engineer, Lickett. Well, the Sounders opened their 2026 season, I suppose you could say, in style. They won 2-0. They were relatively dominant over the Rapids. Paul Rothrock did Paul Rothrock things. There were some gray clouds, though. Jordan Morris went out with a apparent quad injury. Hassani Dotson went out with what was concerned that it was a concussion. But otherwise, I think you could look at the entire game and feel pretty good about how each individual played. Aaron, what were your big takeaways from this first game?
Yeah, I think if not for the ref show in the first half, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and the injuries, it was a game that I would have forgotten about 5 minutes after it ended. Very professional. Sounders never really got out of second gear. Liked a lot of what I saw. I didn't think that anybody played poorly of the starting complement. And very professional. It was a game that the Sounders, I think, knew they had under control from the get-go. And they saw it out effectively, got the goal in the second half to put it away. It was pretty boring from there on out, which I think is fine for this time of the year. So yeah, you can't ask for too much more, I don't suppose. Better than the start to last year where the Sounders outclassed Charlotte and ended up with a draw. I think, the Rapids never really getting especially close to scoring was nice. And the Sounders creating tons of chances and ending up getting two. I mean, that's a good way to start the season. You really couldn't afford to drop points in this one, I think, with the 5 straight games on the road coming up. And, you want to get the vibes right because some of those games might be a little tough. So yeah, no real complaints other than the obviously the injuries.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that first half a little bit because we will get to the good parts, but let's get the bad parts out of the way. So first, 5 minutes, inside of the first 5 minutes, best I could tell, right around 4:30 or so, Jordan Morris looks like he maybe tweaks a muscle. He's making a run, just a quick darting run, and he sort of pulls up a little bit, spends a couple minutes sort of trying to play through it, and then around the 8th minute, he just sits down, covers his face, very upset, which I'm choosing to believe was more out of a general frustration of, oh no, not again, and not a freak out of, oh, I've actually done this before and I know it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks to recover. Why can't I catch a break? I'm going to choose to be positive and think that this is maybe not a horrible situation like that. I guess that's relative, but that it's not that kind of situation. That said, Paul Rothrock takes off his warm-ups, comes in, and for a few minutes there, had the exact impact on the game that you would want. Jesus Ferreira at around the 14th minute or so sends in a cross that's way too far for him. Paulie just chases after it, taps it in, keeps it in bounds, bounces off the ad boards, takes a touch to settle, and then puts in a perfect cross to Albert Rusnak, who scores, best I can tell, his second career header, which you gotta love.
Yeah,
just
pretty.
I was gonna say just like a perfect Paulie Rothrock moment. The hustle
absolutely.
And the class.
It was a hockey goal. Chasing down a lost cause, going into the boards, picking out the pass, and going and celebrating. Yeah, I mean, it really is the sort of quintessential. It's like anybody that had any concerns about me getting paid in the off season, here you go. This is why they did it.
This is why I'm here.
Yeah, and I think it certainly, Jordan going down with an injury is a much bigger bummer than this could possibly counteract. But I do think it was all right, yep, Jordan's out. He might be out a little while. We don't really know, but this is why you have depth on your team. This is why you have guys like Paul Rothrock on the bench, because they can come in and do this, right? And you don't miss a beat. So that was definitely an uplifting goal, well-timed, I thought. And yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say I was initially a Paul Rothrock skeptic. I don't think I was alone in that. And not that I didn't think he was a good player, but that he was going to be this good of a player and that it was going to be sustainable. But he's certainly proven me wrong. I love watching him play. This was a great example of that. And I feel like the more confident he gets, the better he gets. And it's a lot of fun to watch. He's never boring, which, given some Sounders teams of the past, that's a really nice thing to have, I would say.
Yeah, I would say so too. And then just almost immediately after that, the Sounders get what appears to be a second goal. Like 2 minutes later, Alex Roldan stings a volley that forces a save from Zach Steffen. Hassani Dodson's waiting on the doorstep, clearly onside, taps it in. It's 2-0, and here we go. The route that we were all waiting for. Now maybe we're starting to forget about the Jordan Morris injury. It's great. And then the play doesn't restart, and it still doesn't restart. And 4 minutes later, the referee comes back and tells us that the goal has been disallowed for what we later find out is Osaze de Rosario carelessly jumping. Now the replay did show that there was some clash of heads between De Rosario and the defender. And honestly, if that had been called a foul in real time, I don't think anyone would have really had an issue with it. It's like sometimes that, but for that to go to replay and for it to take 4 minutes to go through the replay, that was a gut punch. And it was sort of one of those things like, is this what VAR is for? Like, are we really, we're like, I think one of the things that bugs me also is that there's so many circumstances where I don't think VAR were to intervene. Like if this is an MLS Cup, there's no way that they're disallowing that goal.
No, I can't imagine so. And I know that the MLS ref stats fella that does the Lord's work over there on Blue Sky these days. Yeah,
he is.
Was saying that this is an area of this kind of foul is an area of emphasis for Pro this year. That this is something they really want called that hasn't been called in the past. And I don't hate that necessarily. I'm okay with them saying, look, this hasn't been a foul in the past. It's going to be a foul going forward. I think we've seen some situations where that's happened in the past where that's been a good thing for sure. And I think anything that's designed to prevent head injuries, I'm totally okay with.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, the contact was pretty obvious in real time. The ref was right there. He I'm sure saw it. And I think that the frustration that I have is that if we're going to allow the VAR officials to just talk the referee over the course of about 5 minutes into agreeing with them, just give them the ability to overrule, right? I don't like that model. I think the CR should have ultimate say. And I think the way this should always go is VAR says, hey, this is what we saw. take a look. And that's the end of it. That's the end of the conversation, right? VAR cannot still be in his ear saying, well, why don't you slow it down to 8,000 speed and look and see what you think, right? And that was clearly what was happening. Like the VAR guys are talking him through it and saying, this is what we're seeing. Look at this angle, look at this angle. And it's a waste of time. And it's also just let them make the call. Like if you're going to allow that to happen, to take all of that time, to look at this thing from all these angles, all these different speeds. Like I personally would be fine with VAR being limited to real-time speed, because I think there are so many things that look so much worse when you slow them down and don't look at them in real time. I think this is a great example of that. Like when you watch that foul in real time, it really doesn't look like too much to anybody. And so if it takes you watching it over and over and over and over from multiple angles in slow motion to finally after 5 minutes say, yeah, okay, I guess it's foul. What are we doing? It's not in the spirit of what VAR is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about, hey, there was a really obvious thing that you just didn't see. And that's not what this was. And yeah, I mean, like you said at the beginning, if this is a call that happened in real time and we never get the goal, I don't think anybody cares. I think people maybe roll their eyes and say that's a bit ticky-tack, but whatever, right? That's not an uncommon thing to happen on a corner where there's a foul that nobody really saw, and people say, oh, well, I guess, maybe somebody saw something, whatever, play on.
Well, I think what really bothers me about this, and I don't want to spend too much time on the refereeing, but this is one of those games where you kind of have to talk about it a little bit. For sure. I think what really bugged me about this one is not so much the end result even, and it's that, so the goal happens and it's 2.5 minutes, literally 2.5 minutes before the VAR even calls the referee to look at it.
Yep.
And then they spend another 1.5 minutes looking at it. But if it takes you 2.5 minutes to assess whether or not a review is required, that to me is not clear and obvious. If you've got to break it down that much, and this is a thing, it's not a complicated call. This is not some weird interpretation of the rules. This is, was there a foul that happened here? And if you got to do all this work just to get to, yeah, I think there was a foul here. Well, God damn it. That's not enough. And I am curious to hear if they actually will release I feel like on these controversial calls, they rarely end up releasing the audio. And they only seem to share the audio when everyone is in agreement that this was a great call.
Right.
But I'm curious to see how what the audio transcription, what this sounds like. But either way, the goal gets disallowed. It's a shame. And then almost immediately after, like within a couple of minutes of play being resumed, there's another controversial call. This time, Noah Cobb comes in and clobbers Paul Rothrock on a challenge. And from the angle of the broadcast, the original broadcast angle, it looks like a really bad challenge. Like it looks like he absolutely cleans out Rothrock. Rothrock looks like he got hurt. It's pretty bad. And then they spend about 2.5 minutes reviewing it before they call over the referee. And this ends up being a 4-minute review process as well. And then I will admit here, there is a reverse angle of it that makes it seem less egregious, but it's like one of these, it's probably an orange card. And then sure enough, the referee comes out and says, it's with a gusto, with his whole chest, it was a reckless challenge, yellow card. And it's like, wow, is that the way we want to announce this? I don't know. Like, to me, the gap between red and yellow is such a judgment call that if it's still a yellow card, that to me is not enough to overturn a red unless it was like some misapplication of the law.
For sure. I think as well, if you weren't obviously watching the broadcast, this was even worse on the broadcast because they didn't show the red card, right? They showed the foul. I saw the foul, and in real time, I thought, that's nasty, but I wasn't clamoring for a red card. They said he'd been booked, and then they just don't say anything for like 2 minutes, and then they're like, "Oh, he's going to go review this. There might be a red card here."
No,
right?
They didn't realize it was.
They didn't realize it was a red card. So nobody watching the game on TV has any idea what's going on, right? And then they say, "Oh, there has been a sending off here," while the Rapids player is walking to the locker room.
Oh no.
Amusingly, right? The thing I was thinking is they're definitely going to overturn this because there's no way that's a red card. But if it had been a red card, would he have gotten in trouble for not leaving the field in an orderly fashion?
Well, I'm sure he's gonna get fined because he dicked around on the field for a long time.
Right. And we've seen Sounders players wait until a call got reviewed and then get fined later. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I just I thought that the call for the red card here was pretty rough. I was pretty shocked when they announced. I actually saw your post on Blue Sky that it was a red card and said, "Huh, okay. Well, I guess they totally missed that on the broadcast." And yeah,
were you watching? Just out of curiosity, were you on Fox or Apple?
I was on the Apple. I was on Apple feed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And yeah, it was very strange. So I had absolutely no idea what was going on until I saw your post and then saw the players start walking towards the locker room. But in this case, I think they get the right call. But again, the issue is this is taking so long. What are we doing here? And this is, right, I think, a clear situation where we've seen this review a bunch of times where the AR says, "Hey, come take a look at this," or the VAR ref says, "Hey, come take a look at this." The CR goes over, looks at the thing for like 5 seconds, and immediately changes the call. Right. This was totally one of those situations. I have no idea what he was looking at. And after that first one, just an interminable amount of time.
Yeah, it was. Anyway, at that point, the sort of like the flow of the game is totally botched. But as if that wasn't enough, there was like 2 more stoppages for injuries. There were a bunch of, and then what's funny is that there were a bunch of tackles that Rapids players had after that seemed like they were probably worse than the Noah Cobb tackle. That
Seeley's elbow was right. I thought much worse.
Aronson had there was one like a Seeley. Oh, there's one that also there was a guy that kind of went in 2-footed. Aronson had one that was pretty bad. And then of course Hassani Dotson ends up getting hit in the head. There was like 14 minutes of stoppage time. And of course Dotson ends up getting hurt towards the end of that. Completely unnecessary to still be playing. And we don't know if he actually had a concussion. It sounded like Schmetzer seemed to think that maybe he didn't have a concussion. He wouldn't have to go into concussion protocol, which would be great. But either way, he came out, and at that point, you're just like, get into halftime. We got to start this thing over. And I will say the second half was better. It had more of a flow. But it was still on a razor's edge, right? The Sounders were only up by 1 goal. Any weird thing could happen. We've seen that happen many, many times. But luckily it's Paul Rothrock who gets the sealing goal relatively, 61st minute. And at that point, it felt like the game was almost over. But I do want to shout out a great pass from Osaze de Rosario to play Jesus Ferreira into space. Ferreira's cross is not necessarily great. It takes deflection, but Rothrock takes it first time and just smashes it past Stefan into the goal, and the Sounders celebrate. And it did feel like there was this big cathartic moment. And after the game, I asked Paul, because I saw him before the game, sort of before fans started coming in. He was he had headphones on, and he had a ball in his hand, and he was just kind of roaming around the field, just kind of like vibing out. And I asked him about that whole thing, and he starts talking about how, he was just trying to get in the headspace. It had been kind of a weird preseason. And it ends up being kind of a funny story because, Rothrock has this great year last year where, maybe he's not a club legend, but he's becoming he's very much like a cult hero within the club. Something more than a cult hero, I would say. But he's, if not a club legend, more than a cult hero, he's somewhere in between. He's very beloved at this point.
He's talismanic, I think is a good way to put it.
Good word.
Thanks.
So he comes in and he ends up taking less money to re-sign with the Sounders. And then he spends all preseason training with the second team group. And not because, there was clearly no starting spot. It's like they just made a decision. We're gonna play Jordan out on the wing. We're gonna start Dero or Musovski up top and just see how that goes. And sorry, Paul, you might be playing left back. And in fact, he starts the split squad game. That's the last preseason game where they're playing like a bunch of reserve players from Louisville and guys that they're borrowing from Tacoma Defiance and the academy. And he's playing left back in this game. And I gotta imagine that gets in your head. It's like, wow, I was on this high and I come back this year and I'm just like starting over again. You know, this is where he was 2 years ago, like talking about maybe playing left back or whatever. Right. And it's certainly where he was last year at this time. And he says he was listening to the Donna Summer song, MacArthur Park Suite. And he was listening to it. And I asked him what he was listening to. And he says, well, I was listening to this Donna Summer song because Amy Lou skated to it. And I was really inspired by her whole story. I didn't have any point of reference for who Amy Lou. It is Amy Lou, right? I'm not. You probably don't. I think so. Know. Yeah. We'll say for I'm pretty sure it's Amy Lou. But I think like I said, I had no point of reference for this. Oh no, it's not. God damn it. What's her name? Alyssa Liu. God damn it. Alyssa Liu.
I knew it was Liu, but
it was an A. Yeah. And I knew the last name was Liu. But anyway, so he's like, I was inspired by her story. You know, if you don't know it, she was 16. She was top of the world, one of the best figure skaters ever. And then she just retires and because she's burnt out and she just wants to have a normal life. And then she comes back. She comes back at 18 and has been sort of on this comeback tour. And I actually went and watched her performance. It was amazing. Like she turns in this unbelievable free skate, like perfect, everything perfect. And she did it to this Donna Summer disco song from 1978. Anyway. And he says he got inspiration from that. And it's just like this, like Paul is so good at telling a story, at telling his story of like giving like meaning behind what he's doing. And it was just this reminder of like, God, it's so great to have this guy on the team. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong. He's a great player and he does these fun things, but he's also so good at like, letting you write, like giving you something to like grab onto and create a narrative around. And I love it as someone who covers the team. I absolutely love that he's back.
Yeah. And he's an interesting one because I think he's extremely earnest. Like I think he's very real. I've never gotten a sense that he is in any way fake or manufactured, but I think he absolutely has a sense of, I hate to say brand because that's more cynical than what I mean.
I think he has a sense of narrative. I think he understands. Yeah. He understands there's a story to tell.
I think he knows what is compelling about him, and I think he leans into it. And I love that. I like too. Sports are entertainment, and I don't need everyone to try to craft a persona to make themselves more compelling. But if you have a personality and a story and a way of playing the game and all that stuff that is as compelling as Paul Rothrock, you'd be crazy not to lean into it because it's going to make you more beloved. It's going to be good for your career. It's going to give you a better connection to the fan base. It's going to set you up with a job for life with the Sounders organization if you want it, most likely. It's smart, but it feels absolutely 100% true to who he is as a guy.
Oh, I totally agree. And I just think it's amazing that he, you know, like, I don't know, he didn't know he was going to play in this game, let alone do anything. And that he created this sort of whole story before the game where he, you know, when I asked him like what song's playing and he's like, well, now you're going to put me on the spot. And I thought it was because he couldn't really remember what the song was. But no, not only did he know what the song was, he had a whole fucking story about it. Like it was like, give me a break, dude. Are you serious?
Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
Sounder at Heart has been around in one form or another since 2009. In 2026, though, we make a pretty significant evolution when we go analog. Yes, that's right, in the year of our Lord 2026, we are publishing a real-life magazine. We're calling this thing 4, as in Sounder at Heart 4.0, but we're stylizing it as IV because we absolutely love Roman numeral. And if you want to refer to it as IV, that's cool too. The first issue has a comic book style cover that was hand-drawn by local artist Kevin Newbern. Features by Tim Foss, Susie Rance, and Charlie Boehm, a statistical deep dive by Kat Bush, a Q&A with Brian Schmetzer, a column by G. Willow Wilson, and photographs by Noah Reif, Max Aquino, Mike Russell, and Jane Dershowitz. I could not possibly be more proud of the work everyone put into making this, and I think you're going to absolutely love it. If you'd like to get your hands on one of these limited edition copies, we're currently selling them for $15 on our website. Get yours now. Nos Arietes, admittedly, is not exactly known for our spicy takes, but that doesn't mean we want our food to be mild. Spice up your life with Hacks and Ferments. Handcrafted in Georgetown and made with the best local ingredients from across the Pacific Northwest, they specialize in unique small batch fermented hot sauces and vinegars. Hacks and Ferments brings bold flavors and natural fermentation together for something truly special. Whether you're a heat seeker or just looking to elevate your cooking, you'll find something you love at hacksandferments.com. That's HAXANFERMENTS.com. And right now, if you use the code Sounder at Heart, that's all one word, at checkout, you will get a free hot sauce with your order. Again, go to hacksandferments.com, use the code Sounder at Heart at checkout for a free hot sauce with your order. Hacks and Ferments is a proud sponsor of the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
So anyway, I loved it. And you know, we should talk about some of the other stuff in this game. I did really like Rothrock. Now it is funny that, you know, Sounders really tried to, I don't know if they tried, but they were ready to sort of like put it on the back burner. And here he is. He's going to be starting game 2. I guarantee it.
Yeah. Seems quite likely.
Yeah. And it's what the other funny thing is, this is the second time that he's come off the bench early on and had an impact like this. You remember the way he got his start also, like, was when he came off the bench for Alex Roldan when Roldan got a concussion against Minnesota. And I think he had a goal and an assist in that game too.
Yeah. And then I think was an injury sub against Houston, like either midweek that same week or.
Yeah. I mean, he certainly, that's where his trajectory really started to kind of shoot. He scored he scored the next week against Houston, but I don't know. Other people in this game, I thought Ferreira was really good. You know, he was all over the place. He ends up with 2 assists, 2 kind of cheap assists, I guess you could say. Although the first assist, it's funny to me that he gets it. He gets a secondary assist because he was like a really bad pass.
I think not getting an assist on that pass to Rusnak that Rusnak put wide of the post,
right?
It makes it like that was worth 3 or 4 assists. So yeah, I'm fine with him getting credit for one.
That's a good point. Yeah, he early on in the second half, he made a pass where he threads it through like 5 defenders to set Rusnak up for just an absolutely gorgeous chance. You know, and I said in Discord, if you give me one player, give me $100 to bet on one player to put that shot on frame, I would probably take Rusnak. And he just hits it wide. I almost got the sense he didn't quite know where he was. Like he didn't have.
That's what I thought as well. Yeah.
Or he was almost surprised at how open he got there. But I know D-Row was not as he had the one pass, you know, and other than that, he didn't do a whole lot. But I thought he was fine. You know,
I thought with D-Row, there were a lot of things that he did that were not especially glamorous that Danny Masovsky does not do, cannot do. Just some of the dirty work, some of his hold up play is much more effective.
He was effective in the press.
Effective in the press, just kind of generally being a nuisance. I was impressed. It was a quiet game. Like that's not if you repeat that game 34 times, that's not great. Right. But I did see a difference. Like, if you're going to tell me you can start either of these guys and neither one of them are going to score, I'm picking D-Row 10 times out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that makes you a starting number 9 is how well you can impact the game even when you're not getting chances.
Yeah.
And he found a way. The pass that he has to set up the second goal is a great pass. It's not necessarily a pass you expect your number 9 to be able to make. He came back pretty far into his own end and hit it was not like just a chip ball. It was, he hit a solid through ball to Ferreira into space. So, I appreciate that he has that in his bag. I don't know if we've seen him do that in the past. I really was happy with the way the Sounders handled the Rapids build out. I thought that their press was very effective. At times, the Rapids, I'm curious your thoughts on this. The Rapids were playing a style of build out that we don't see a lot, where they were seemingly very happy to pass the ball around in their own box, and they got in trouble a few times. But I guess this is becoming an in vogue style. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have to be confident in doing it. You have to do it well, but it can be really, really effective when it's done well.
And I guess the idea is that you do it against teams who want to press you. So you sort of invite the press and then play through it, right?
Yeah, more or less, right? You get them to overcommit, and the idea is that you have like these patterns of movement that you feel really comfortable playing out of, like a heavy press, right? You've got a ton of pressure on you. You know where guys are going to be.
Right. They had like 5 guys in the box sometimes.
Yeah. So it's super effective when it works. And I am somewhat skeptical that this Rapids team has the talent to pull it off, because it requires, some pretty significant skill and confidence. But I appreciate and respect that they are trying to do it, right? It's something I haven't seen a ton of in MLS. And when it works really well, teams can really punch above their weight by doing it effectively.
Yeah, it did not work, I think is
that's
the takeaway though in this. Whatever they were trying to do, they gave up a lot of possession. I mean, in the first, I want to say at least through the second red card, or the red card that got overturned, at least through that point, they barely were able to get past their own end. And they did not create a lot of dangerous possession either in transition or out of sustained possession either.
Yeah.
And so I think that was an encouraging thing for the Sounders. The Sounders ended up with a average line of confrontation that was close to 52, almost at midfield, which is pretty wild. They only one time last year, and they were a reasonably good pressing team last year. Only once did they have a game where they had a higher line of confrontation than they did yesterday. And a lot of that, I'm sure, is because the Rapids played so deep in their own end. But, the Sounders didn't shy away from playing their game either. They saw what the Rapids were doing, and they said, sure, we'll take 5 of those. And and I thought that was encouraging. I also thought the crowd, I don't want to make too much of the crowd, but this was the Sounders' best attended home opener since COVID, which is notable to me. Especially notable because the Hawks Nest wasn't open. I guess there's renovations going on for the World Cup that have closed the Hawks Nest until a later date. I don't know when that's going to be reopened, but it did feel like the result was more people packed into the lower bowl, and it felt energy. At least during the second half, it felt energetic. There were definitely some times when the energy got sucked out of there. But on the flip side, I guess getting into the stadium was a total nightmare. The Sounders changed the time they opened the gates. They used to open it an hour and a half before the listed kickoff. Now they're only doing it an hour before. I don't think that was the main problem. I think the main problem was a lot of people were telling me that they just had fewer gates open, and then they also had fewer concessions, which then led to even more lines when you got inside. Either way, people were getting into the stadium quite late, and there were a lot of people who were really frustrated, which only was made worse by the rain and by the constant stoppages of time.
Right.
And yet I still felt like that was a good crowd.
It was a good crowd. I mean, there was definitely an energy that was present that did obviously get sucked out. It wasn't just the crowd where after that second stoppage, the energy got sucked out. I thought all the energy came out of the game as well.
Yeah.
But that's a different conversation. I thought the crowd looked good on TV, especially once it filled in a little bit. I thought, especially given the weather. I mean, I was really on the fence all day, and then when I saw what the weather was shaping up to be at night, I decided to stay at home. So, considering that, I think that's a really good showing, and that's encouraging because it shows that they potentially are building off of last year, off of being more exciting, being better to watch at home. And I thought they did a pretty good job on the field of doing what they needed to do to get people to come back. And whether or not the experience of everything else, of getting into the stadium, of getting a hot dog or what have you, is going to put people off, we'll have to wait and see. And we've got plenty of time for people to forget that part of the experience, I guess, because we've got over a month until the next home game.
Yeah.
So
almost 6 weeks till 6 weeks, I think, till the next home game.
Yeah. So that's a bummer in some ways, because even if they play reasonably well on the road, they'll probably have some results that don't feel great in that 6 weeks. But I mean, I thought the Sounders as a team did a really good job of giving fans something to come back for. And that does make the rest of the experience, I think, frustrating, because it just didn't need to be that way. It's really strange, this team, 17 years in now, 12 years, I think,
still figuring things out. Their
full
home
operations.
stadium.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. It's pretty crazy. And I
and
don't know, maybe they'll get there someday.
Yeah, so my understanding of what happened in this one, or at least the decision to open the gates late, was maybe a reasonable financial decision. Someone actually told me that over the course of the season, that might save them, well into six figures, which, hey, that's a potential TAM signing, right? And so I don't necessarily begrudge them that part of it, but if you're gonna not open, presumably because of that extra half hour of time that you have to pay everyone, you should still have the same number of people working and operating the gates. And that's just kind of wild that they didn't do that. But looking ahead to this 5-game road trip, I will say the Sounders have some winnable games in this. And I would actually go as far to say that there are no unwinnable games in these next 5. They're at Real Salt Lake next week, which, obviously a bugaboo location for the Sounders. Sounders have not won there, I don't think, since 2000. I don't think in MLS play, in regular season play, I don't think they've won there since 2011, the Lamar Nagel game.
Yep. That's the one time they've ever won there, I think, right?
Well, they also, and then they won a playoff game there.
Right. In also in 2011.
No, that was
2012. 2012. Yeah.
And then I actually think they may have won there in 2009 too. But either way, it's been a long, long time since and not a lot of ties either. They've been really bad at RSL. So usually, though, that game falls in a weird part of the schedule. It's like they're always rotating for that game. They should be pretty close to full strength, Jordan Morris aside. So fingers crossed on that one. And then they're at St. Louis City. Then they have the CONCACAF Champions Cup road game. And then they're at San Jose. And then they have a home game for Champions Cup. And then they're at Minnesota. And then they close out the road trip at Houston. I mean, I think 6 points, very doable from those 5. I would think 9 points is pretty realistic. I get beyond 9 points and you're getting hopeful, but
getting greedy. Yeah.
I
think we go ahead. Sorry.
I don't really have much.
I was just going to say, I think that's we ran the numbers in Discord earlier, and the pace that you tend to see from supporter shield winners for road games would have the Sounders at about 8 points from these 5.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they have to do 5 in a row makes that tougher, but the fact that they're playing the teams they're playing makes that a little easier. So if they can get 7 or 8 points, I feel pretty great about it, or pretty good about it. If they get more than 8, I feel pretty great about it. The thing that's always tricky with MLS is that teams that were shitty the year before randomly become really good without really changing that much. And so there's always the possibility that one of these teams has gotten good. I mean, Houston could be legitimately good.
San Jose looks like they might be okay.
San Jose might be okay. Yeah, I mean, it's year 2 of Bruce Arena down there, right? So maybe he's had some time to work his magic. So you never know. But I think this team is capable of beating every single one of these teams, even if they hit their 100 percentile outcomes for the full season. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. In a way, it's kind of nice to get this long stretch of road games knocked out, because you're playing with a little bit of house money the rest of the way, which is always a good position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. The last part, from the run into the World Cup break is a lot of home games after that, and that could be they could put together a nice little run, and we'll see how it goes. But I think there's a reason for optimism, I guess, after this first game. I thought, when Dotson and Roldan were together, I thought they looked really good. I mean, honestly, I don't have complaints about the performance of anyone that started. And to the degree I had complaints, it was things like, Georgie Manungu was not as aggressive in open space as I would have liked. Danny Masovsky didn't do a whole lot when he came on. It was good to see Paul Arriola get on the field. He didn't do a whole lot. He also came on really late. So I don't really know what to take. I don't know that there's really anything to take from that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, everyone that was on the field in the first half, I thought looked good. I'm optimistic that Ferreira can, I thought he got off to a great start in terms of everything. Reagan and Yamar were really, really good, I thought, especially in supporting the press.
Yeah, Reagan especially, I thought, the Rapids didn't do much, but the 3 times the Rapids did anything, Reagan was a big part in making sure it didn't turn into anything. So
yeah, and Andrew Thomas came up with one. He needed to make one big save, which was kind of when the game was already almost over, but he did make one good save there at the end. Yeah. And he maybe had a couple questionable passes, but nothing that was
that's always the thing, though, right? Like when you step up a level, I feel like for goalkeepers, the distribution is always the thing that takes some time getting used to, because there's just a little bit less time. And obviously he's played in MLS plenty of times, but it is different, I feel like, when you're starting in the first game and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, I'll give one more plug. I'll give one more plug to 4, the Sounder at Heart magazine. We had our launch party on Friday. Really good turnout. I know Aaron was even there, hiding in the seats with Lickett.
There were a lot of people there.
There were a lot of people.
I don't want to get in anybody's way.
Yeah. Andrew Thomas was great with his time. The Sounders brought the Leagues Cup. That was fun.
It was smaller than I thought it would be.
The Leagues Cup?
The Leagues Cup, yeah. It was kind of tiny. It was like a Cascadia Cup size. It felt like.
It was a little bigger than that. It wasn't very tall. It wasn't very tall. That's true. It had some girth.
Yeah.
It does have some.
It did have some girth. You're right. You're right. Some people say that's more important. I don't know.
That is. That is what they say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you want to get an issue, we still have lots of magazines left to sell if people still want them. I think it looks great.
It's good. I wasn't involved in the production of it. I don't have anything in it, so I can say this unbiasedly. It's extremely good. It's well worth the dough. Just as something to have on your coffee table, looking nice.
Yeah. Lickit did a wonderful job putting it together.
Beautiful.
And I think we're going to do a World Cup issue. I've started talking to some people about writing stories. I need to make sure that Lickit is still on board with putting it together. Yeah. But I think he saw the demand. I think he's addicted now to seeing people excited about his product.
I hope so. Yeah.
But
he got a lot of praise from my wife for his work. So
good.
That was enough to
and she said she might be able to get it into the library for us. So
yeah.
We'll see.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool. All right, let's get out of here. Aaron, thank you for breaking it down with me.
You betcha.
But let's get out of here. Thanks to our sponsor, Full Pull Wines. Thank you to our subscribers for making this all happen. We are in the midst of a nice little subscriber drive, so it's been great to see those numbers ticking up after a little bit of time that got flat. So hey, that always makes me feel good. All right. That said, I'm Jeremiah Oshan signing off for Aaron and Lickit. This is No Sadiatis, part of the Sounder Heart podcast network. And remember, you'll never get alone.
Let's go, Sounders.